OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Watch Sky Sports on the Now TV Sky Sports Pass and watch BT Sport and Premier Sports on the Sports Extra Pass.
Have you seen anything like that?
I'm a very confident front runner. I've caddied for 33 years, 145 wins now, and that's the best win I've ever had.
I have no idea what you have.
I don't know. How are we going to count all the shots? I can't keep track.
Damn it. I don't think he's pleased.
Of course you would. That's a particularly stupid question. It's the Irish Open. Of course you want to play at the weekend.
Well, you're welcome along. We are fresh from Jon Rahm and Dustin Johnson trading 44 and 66 footers at Olympia Fields. World numbers 1 and 2 trading blows. It was exceptional stuff. We now slingshot into the finale at East Lake. It's a Friday start and the US Open is on the horizon. Welcome along to Golf Weekly. There is much going on. Nathan Murphy, hello.
Hello.
Fionn Davenport, good evening.
Hey, Joe.
Peter Lawrie, hello to you.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
Great to have everyone on board. I'm very well, Peter. I'm very well. Golf Weekly, as ever, is with thanks to our friends at Now TV. You can stream the Premier League, Serie A, and the Championship on Now TV. More importantly, though, the US Open at Winged Foot is coming up. You have the Masters in November, and then the Masters again. Twice in 5 months, we have the Masters. So it's all there and waiting for you as you choose on Now TV. We're very happy to have them on board as sponsors. There is much going on. Let's start with Rory McIlroy then, and the myth that I suspect Peter Lawrie is going to try and perpetrate. So Rory McIlroy is now officially a father, Nathan, I understand. It's happened.
Geez, things move fast, don't they? This time last week, we're sitting here wondering what's going on. Is he distracted somehow? And Peter Lawrie, Nostradamus, comes in. Is he in the know? Is he in that inner circle of the McIlroy clan where he knows and he just won't tell us? But he's fairly confident there's something going on. There's a distraction. And tells a tale of his own career, of his wife expecting and being away from home and not being able to focus. And lo and behold, about 6 hours later, it's revealed that Rory McIlroy's wife is indeed expecting. And here we are a week later, and she's had the kid 3 days ago. So the news just came through about an hour ago that Poppy Kennedy McIlroy was born last Monday lunchtime. So congratulations to all.
Big congrats. That's a nice name, actually. Poppy. I like it. The tweets rolled in. I mean, really, how naive are all you people? Hi, lads. Peter looked into his crystal ball again.
Don't get sick, Joe. Please, just don't get sick.
Don't make me mute you.
Take it like a man.
Peter looked into his crystal ball, reckoned Kenneth, again, and he called it with McIlroy and the off-field distractions. When Peter gets a hunch, just roll with it, Fionn. Don't fight it. It's pointless.
I know.
Sean Walsh said, Peter, bang on with the Rory call. You might get some credit this week. We'll see, Sean. Conrad Clancy, that was some call by Peter Lawrie last week. There may be something else in the background for Rory, he said. Broomer said, Peter Lawrie's my favourite golf voice in the media. My God. Bang on with his comments on horrible ready golf. Geez, Peter, you're right on everything here. Be ready to play when it's your turn to do so. Respect your playing partners, respect traditions, respect the game. Later on, Ed Byrne. There are lots of tweets I'm not reading out, by the way, to this effect. Peter with another tip from last week's pod. Something else is going on in Rory's life. Rory, baby due in a few days. Have you got the lotto numbers, Peter? And on it goes. Matt Davis. Rory admits his mind is not on the golf. It's on his unborn child. Peter Lawrie calls another one. John O. Peter suggested on the pod that McIlroy had some personal issues. It turns out he's going to be a father in a matter of days. Peter probably still won't get any respect from the other lads, though. You're damn right you won't, John. And then finally, someone with a bit of sense, Rory Harrison. Peter Lawrie is some bluffer. He had insider knowledge. And on that note. Now, let me just say this, Peter. Let me say this. And I was sworn to secrecy. I didn't even say it to Nathan and Fionn. I knew at Harding Park time that McIlroy was expecting a child. I had heard, me, one of the great outsiders in the world of golf. So I had heard around Harding Park time. You are now going to tell us that you somehow didn't know.
Hand on my heart, I didn't know. And that's hand on my heart, I didn't know. And I tell you what, I'll give you we did the podcast last Thursday, right? On Friday I was in work. I'm taking the baskets from upstairs, and Sean Flaherty is Rory's manager, is hitting balls on Top Tracer upstairs in the driving range. And I started chatting with him, and I said to him, I was defending your man the other day. And he goes, what about? And I said, all the others were saying that he's problems. I was saying he's got a problems off course. And Sean,
can I just interrupt here?
And Sean, no. I have to finish.
Treacherous weasel.
And Sean said categorically, there's something big. There's something happening off course. It's big. And I went, are you going to tell me? And he said, no. And I said, okay, fair enough. And the next day, he comes out saying that, and I swear to God, hand on my heart, I knew nothing.
Whoa, let's back up the truck that has just run right over myself, Joe, and Fionn.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're telling us
when I get
Rory
a chance,
Rory McIlroy, the biggest superstar in Irish sport.
Yeah.
In one of the biggest superstars in world sport. You have gone to his manager and said, the lads were criticizing him.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where that is just totally untrue.
You are his biggest critic by a mile.
I know, yeah.
Peter.
Yeah. Peter, and he knows that too.
And there's just wondering why Rory won't come on.
Yeah. No, Rory will come on anytime. If we want Rory McIlroy on this show, he will come on.
All right, we'll get him on.
Oh, okay. So are you suggesting that clearly we haven't wanted him on because he hasn't been on yet?
Yeah. Sometimes like all those interesting comments he comes out with, I'm just sick of them. The last thing we want is to be talking to him about them. Talking behind his back when we could actually talk to him.
Can I just remind listeners with short memories that, and I think I'll speak for the other two lads as well, is that the only thing that we took issue with was the issue of playing without crowds just seemed like a very iffy excuse, and that as far as we could tell, that the main issue was to do with just like getting back into rhythm. It had nothing to do with like that he had big problems.
Fionn, never let the truth get into the way of a good story.
Okay, but however, I will say this. I want to pay you credit though, because even though I must say I'm very much with Joe Molloy on the throwing one big arched eyebrow at you protesting that you didn't know. Right. I will give you credit. I will give you a Nostradamus sticker for this one. Like, you predicted Jon Rahm was going to win. That's the one that I thought was like, holy moly, Jesus, that was great.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, you did.
Yeah, Jesus, I'm even better than I actually think I am.
You predicted Rahm at the end.
Yeah. There you go.
Not for a chance. Not for a chance, by the way. Do I believe you? I think you did know.
Right.
That's your story, and you're sticking to it.
Both hands on my heart.
Get away with our listeners. I honestly thought every tweet was going to be, oh my God, Peter Lawrie clearly knew it was the most you could have been a little bit more subtle with it.
Yeah.
Actually, everybody somehow.
I got those texts, Nathan. Yeah, you're slagging me there, but it's okay.
Right. This isn't about you, Peter, we should say. It is about Rory McIlroy.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Massive congratulations to Rory. Now, clearly, I don't, and this is where privacy with a capital P comes into it. I don't know the nature of the pregnancy. Has it been smooth sailing or difficult? And you wish them well and everything. And obviously with COVID, it's probably a scary time to be pregnant. I don't know to what extent it should have affected his form. It's definitely a happy situation in the main. You should still be able to practice 3, 4, 5 hours a day. So his mind may be elsewhere. I'm not sure it totally explains the lack of form. I would say, plenty of players do very well when they're expecting children, but I'm sure it's distracting.
He played very well on the Thursday and Friday. Very well.
Which suggests, the fact that there was an imminent birth didn't affect his game on those days. So, I still think there's just issues with his game generally, which he needs to sort out.
I did like, though, very much, and it's refreshing to hear, as Nathan, he's absolutely right. This is one of the global superstars of a sport, and the biggest Irish star there is in his comments when once he acknowledged after Steve, I think it was Steve Sands said it first, or publicly, he goes, no, I've been, I've told friends, I've told obviously family, people around, but didn't really feel it was one of those things that I had to announce. And there was something so just refreshingly brilliant about it. Is that like simply because he is one of the big sports stars, we don't own that part of his life that is his. And there's something lovely about that. And the smile with which he said to me this is again a reminder of a player who has fought for the last 11 years to strike that balance between public Rory and keep that healthy side of your life with your friends, your family, and anyone you want to share it with, but that it doesn't belong to everybody else. So I just thought, I have to say, it is a good news story, but I thought even the manner in which it was dealt with was, again, another brilliant bit of news as well. That's lovely. Like, in a way, he's grown up in front of us all, hasn't he? So you do feel very invested in him. So, it's a beautiful thing, and hopefully he really enjoys it. And Bryson DeChambeau, by the way, was talking to Andrew Landry, who revealed that DeChambeau, and this is absolutely a theory I have, by the way. I've been felt this way for a long time. He has apparently looked into it, DeChambeau, and the win percentage for new fathers is abnormally high. It's off the charts. So, Danny Willett, for instance, won the Masters 11 days after the birth of his child. Apparently, new fathers are dangerous. They're just, they're high on life. They're feeling good.
I don't think, and this is again Bryson DeChambeau getting credit for something he doesn't deserve any credit for. Like, this is a well-known factor. Keith Elliott, who is the betting guru, has been writing about this for years and has all the statistics to back up. Nappy factor, as it's called.
Yeah.
That golfers who emerge back out on tour after the birth of a child tend to do very, very well. So it'll be interesting to see if this week Rory, presuming he is going to play, obviously the baby was born on Monday, so incredible how many golfers' babies are born on Mondays. Just works out quite nicely, and you're free to go at the week. And it's worked out quite nicely this week in particular, obviously, because he isn't playing till Friday, and it goes on until Monday. But 15 million quid, I presume he's going to turn up, and I think, get your money on, not just this week, but also for the US Open. I don't know, Peter, if you played quite quickly after having a child, and whether it's that enormous sense of relief that everything that McIlroy's spoken about in the opposite way, and distraction, that all of a sudden there's a weight off your shoulders. Because I would have often thought it was almost the opposite, that the guilt of having to leave your child 3-4 days after the baby is born might get on top of you. But actually, it seems to give people some sort of freedom.
No, I was completely the opposite, Nathan. I was a shocker. I played absolute rubbish. Unfortunately, the birth of our first child, which was Jessica, it was a difficult birth, and let's put it that way. And mummy and baby were in hospital for a little bit of time afterwards. So, no, I remember going to the Dunlop Phoenix in Japan, an 80-man field, and I missed a cut.
Ugh.
And myself and I can remember to this day, Bubba Watson missing the cut together and hitting balls in the range on the Saturday and Sunday, waiting for the flight back.
Ugh.
And like, it was a shocker to miss the cut in the Dunlop Phoenix. Like, I was the Strixon player, representative from Ireland or whatever.
Did you chat much to Bubba?
No, but I was amazed at the way he hit it at that stage. So they were the very, very early days of Bubba Watson. So, no, I unfortunately, I'm the opposite. Played rubbish after the baby factor.
How old is Jessica now, Peter?
15.
Wow.
Yeah. Time flies.
That was the early days of Bubba. I wonder, did people ever try and get in his ear and change the way he played?
I would have said they probably did at the very start. Looked at him and said, look, you're never going to make it. Because I remember watching him then and I thought, wow, this guy's, useless. The way he swung it, or the way he hit the ball. There was no kind of finesse about it. It was just like gouge it out there. But there you go. Masters winner, multiple winner on tour. How wrong can you be?
Quite wrong. So, well, let's have a glance backwards then, because there's loads to discuss. So BMW Olympia Fields, which was set up like a US Open. Rahm opened with a 75, by the way, and went on to win, which doesn't happen very often. They definitely took the handbrake off a touch on the Sunday and allowed players go low. I think Rahm had a 64 on the Sunday. And that was with picking up his ball and not putting in the marker, which I've never actually, even at amateur level, seen happen. It was, it was an extraordinary thing. And like, he just couldn't believe he had done it. But geez, what a finish. This whole tournament was, I think we can safely say, Fionn, pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the best. I mean, it's just a weird thing. Ever since golf has returned, I thought the Colin Morikawa winning the PGA was awesome. So you're thinking, oh, nothing's going to better that this year. Just that finale, the battle with DJ, etc. And sure enough, it's like, you know, you have the BMWs going, hold my beer, you know, and sure enough, as you said, you've got this incredible finale. And a few weeks ago, I have to hold my hand up and said, I just mused on, no doubt that Jon Rahm was a brilliant, brilliant player, but did he have Hall of Fame in him in the way that I thought, or I think that Justin Thomas does? And I have to say, this weekend showed not just that he is a brilliant finisher and to, as you said, close out with a 66 and a 64 and, I mean, holding that one on the first playoff hole, but it's just the way he played. And to give you, he was finished top 15 in the field, off the tee, approaches, around the greens, and putting. Like top 15 in all the key stats.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the mark of greatness. And it's not just that he sank like one of the best putts you'll see for many a year to win it, because it could have easily been DJ. Like easily. Like DJ's on such a hot streak, and DJ did nothing wrong. But for when you actually break it down and say, oh, was Rahm lucky? Well, I mean, no, he had a bit of luck on the playoff hole, but he went low. He posted a score that I'm sure we're going to talk about DJ's brilliance in just a second as well. But is when you look at those statistics and the ability on one of the hardest, and also as well as it's a second win because he won Memorial, which was also set up like an incredibly tough course. So Rahm shows his best on the courses that are set up to test your absolute best. And you can't say more than that. Like, it was just, what an amazing performance. And as like, I'm sure everybody agrees, like, I was riveted. So much so that I was annoyed at 1 o'clock in the morning, like with toothpicks holding my eyes open, going, please bring this to an end, please. And I just couldn't leave it alone. And my poor wife is like going, what are you doing? I'm like, shh, I'm watching the golf. So.
It does really emphasize the extent to which Nathan Rahm has to be a big, big favourite for a US Open very shortly. You know, I mean, as Fionn says, he's built for these courses. In fairness to DJ, as has often been the case, and we've often pointed out, he has lost tournaments. He didn't lose this tournament. I mean, it was a phenomenal effort. Even as he took like 5 minutes over that 40-plus footer putt, I was thinking, come on. Like, you're not going to hold it. Just roll it down there. Let us all get to bed. I actually think his putt was tougher than Rahm's. His broke about 3 or 4 times.
And his probably had more pressure on it in a strange way, because he needed to get that to get himself into a playoff. Whereas Rahm, obviously, is probably expecting he's going to run it up close and he's going to go on to the second playoff hole and maybe he'll take it there. So, like, Dustin Johnson did absolutely nothing wrong yet. And we can't criticize him. I know we've questioned at times how he responds to pressure, positively and negatively. I think this time he was just beaten by brilliance, by absolute brilliance. Yeah. And whereas Rahm can win on any course, and that's the one thing we now know, as Fionn touched on, where he's already won this year. He can win on links courses. How lucky we are that he's this dominant figure in the Irish Open, and hopefully when things get back to normal, it'll keep him coming back to Ireland every summer, because I think he has a personality that Irish people really attach to. But also he wins in Dubai. He wins everywhere and anywhere. And it does feel as though he is the next one to go and win a major championship. Lots of players have been in that position. Ricky Fowler was in that position for 5-6 years, and you sort of forget about Ricky. Like, the generations have moved on very quickly. Yeah. But Rahm, everything about him I like. And this thing of he needs to change, he needs to somehow control his temperament if he wants to get to some sort of another level. No way. You want this. You want that little bit, and without getting too stereotypical of that fiery Spanish Serie-esque attitude, you do not want to get that out of him at all. I don't care if he smashes a club every 5-6 tournaments. If it means that he can perform like that once every couple of months, you take it. And it was just brilliant. And geez, how good has golf been? How lucky have we been since it has returned? And I know Fionn touched on the PGA, and yeah, it had drama, but the regular season events, right from the start, when Daniel Berger, he won the first tournament back with Morikawa, misses the short one, to Morikawa and Justin Thomas playoff. Like, remember Justin Thomas put in that playoff? You thought you wouldn't see anything like it for the rest of the year. And then last Sunday night, you've got 2 of them. Better again. So the quality hasn't been diluted in any way by the lack of spectators. The only disappointment of the last 2 months is that Tiger and Rory haven't really figured. But there's such a depth of talent. I think for people who love golf, you don't mind. Maybe for the grander scheme of attracting the layman's attention, you want Tiger and Rory. But I think for those of us who will watch every Sunday night, the drama has just been insane.
Insane. Rory was much better, we should say as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played really well.
Yeah, he put himself right in there. Like, it was just, you kind of wondered how he would react when the news broke on Friday night. Again, getting back to distractions, would it be a weight off his shoulders and he'd really kick on over the weekend? Didn't happen for him, but there was enough there to suggest that it's not far away. And enough there, obviously, going to Eastlake, where he's won last year, has won twice, and heading into a brilliant stretch of the season, that he just needs something. You just feel one win and he's going to have that run of top tens again. Yeah,
I feel like he's getting closer for sure. I watched every shot of Tiger's final round. He was really good. I did, like, Tiger's finished this tournament on 11 over. Honestly, I'm going to make what I call respectfully a Peter Lawrie-esque prediction, which means a good prediction. I'm telling, there's something there with Woods. So there were 2 or 3 drives which, club gets stuck behind him and it goes a mile right, and he always has them in his locker. But the amount of good shots Woods hit, he was striping the ball. He was in a lot of good shots. The putter is a bit cold, and he misread a couple. But I was thinking, geez, around Augusta Greens, which he knows like the back of his hand, and he'll know the way every putt breaks, and he'll probably, he'll ramp up the putting practice, I would think, in advance of the Masters. Honestly, I mean, Peter, you can shoot me down as he departs with his 11 over, and we're not going to see him again. And I don't know enough about Winged Foot to make a prediction there. The last 2 Sundays, I've watched every shot he's hit. Tiger's playing secretly very, very well.
I think he's swinging the club well. I think he is striking the club ball well. His body language is atrocious, though. Do you not get it? Like, he's like a guy who is out there playing in a pro-am and doesn't want to be there. And that's what it comes across to me anyway. He seems to have, I don't know how you would describe it as, but a dislike to what he's doing. There's no happiness in the man at all. There's no jovial with his even playing partners, or with his caddy. There's nothing about him. Like when he came back, and won the Masters, there was a likable sense of Tiger Woods. There seemed to be more jovial. He would be chatting with people. He would be more approachable, even to commentators and to interviewers and stuff like that. Now he seems to be growling at anybody and everybody who is, anywhere even close to him. And that's what I don't like about Tiger Woods at this moment in time.
Did you see any of his post-round interviews? So, as you said, and Peter's right, like for a couple of years, and certainly around winning the Tour Championship and then the Masters, he seemed much more open. He was affable, and it's kind of weird. Like, I think Tiger fans are almost secretly, or maybe not so secretly, happy that he's gone back to be he did an amazing thing in the interview where he was asked like 3 basic questions and didn't answer any of them, but talked. So he was asked, like, it was like such a tee-up question. It was just like, how do you find the balance between rest and reps? You got to do reps, but you got to rest the body. And it was like, rather than just answer it, he goes, yeah, I think this is just a tough year, for everybody, with the pandemic. And you're like, what? That isn't the answer. And he seems to have retreated to kind of old Tiger, which was give him nothing, just you say the usual pat thing. Now, the only clue he did give, because I was watching and I was going, oh, that putter. But he puts it down to that he was missing in the wrong spots. And so the putts he had were way tougher than they should have been. He should have been on different sides of the hole, etc. And that's what he put down as the biggest thing that he has to work on, is to find like the way to not miss in the wrong spot.
I think maybe we're overstating the demeanor thing. Like, there was a great picture of him congratulating Morikawa on his major win and making a point of going over to congratulate him. There were shots of him and McIlroy and I think it was Henne, who he works with now, having lunch, really relaxed, having a burger, all smiles. I would say, and Peter, you can testify to this, and we even can as rank bad amateurs, it's probably tough to be in great form as you're blowing yourself out of the tournament Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know, like it's really hard to be in super good form when you've kind of blown up. But what I've seen in the 2 Sundays is someone who's gone out maybe without the pressure and just said, I'm going to try and shoot a good round. And I think demeanour-wise, he's looked okay. You know, I'd give him a bit of a pass when he's 8 over, 9 over on a Friday or on a Saturday, and he's been asked about reps or rest and all this stuff that, like, you know, do we have to do my body is not what it was answer again? You know, I wouldn't say he's gone back totally to where he was before his comeback, so to speak. I don't know what you're seeing, Nathan.
Like, he's still a competitor.
Yeah.
As you said, you see them photos of him relaxed having lunch with Rory, which I don't know, did he do that 15 years ago? I don't think he did. I don't think after a disappointing round, he sits down. Well, obviously he didn't. He didn't sit down with Phil Mickelson for a coffee and Rory showing him some photos, maybe of, you know, scans or something, and they're having he's got a nice little look in his face. I don't think that happened. But like, he's always going to be the competitor. He's never going to be happy not playing good golf. And still feels that he has a chance of winning major championships this year. He's probably one of the only ones who thinks he does on his current form. So as long as he's, I definitely didn't see this sort of snarling around the place and being rude. I just saw someone who looked very, very frustrated. And again, at times looked a bit like an old man.
Yeah. Not
quite struggling to pick up the tee, but definitely not moving as easily as he was at his best, say, 18 months ago.
Yeah.
So go on.
Isn't that what Coulthard said about him, though? It's just observing him over the days, just going, yeah, his body, it's not quite that he's playing injured, but yeah, maybe that's just age. You know, I mean, he's whatever he is, 44 now or whatever age he is. Can I just say, just on a note, I thought Andrew Coulthard was terrific on commentary. I thought his observations were brilliant. And there was one in particular where did you hear him? I don't know if any of you heard it, but he took a little cut at Matsuyama. So he observed something, and Ewan Murray, in fairness, goes, geez, Andrew, you really notice everything. Is that so when Matsuyama picks a ball out of the cup, he leans fully on his putter head. And so the putter head makes an indentation in the green, whereas other players kind of lean you know, they don't put their full body weight, whereas Matsuyama does. And Coulthard just called it out. He goes, that's not good. No, you can't be doing that. You can't be leaving a mark on the green like that. Not cool. And I just thought there was something, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on Matsuyama like at all, but I just think that that's what I would like out of my co-commentator, is to be able to see something and kind of say, well, both good and bad. I don't know. You didn't catch any of that?
I didn't catch that moment, no. But I do like him. I think he's very good. I mean, he gets very frustrated if it's a dog leg left and a player hits a fade into it. He's like, what are they doing? You know, I think the stupidity. I think stupidity irks him, actually. I think he's got a kind of nice grumpiness when it comes to that. By the way, on Woods, so, I mean, we touched on this last Thursday when the Milwaukee Bucks situation was very fresh in the memory, and we were wondering what would we see from Woods, and we saw nothing. I mean, next to nothing. And I think we went a bit too easy on Woods even. Like, it's such a colossal blank, you know. Every sport is doing it, every league is doing it, and he is African Asian golfer and nothing, you know. So it was interesting during the weekend off the ball. We had Dr. Harry Edwards on. This guy is like the doyen of sports activism, you know. So he was the founder of the Olympic human rights movement in 1967, which culminated in John Smith and Tommy Carlos in Mexico 68. You know, he was the real thinker behind that and a big part of that. He's a consultant with the 49ers. So he was there when Kaepernick took the knee for the first time. He's an advisor to Kaepernick. And so he was with us on Wednesday, and he was talking about the various waves of activism. So he was saying, like, the first wave of activism was a cyclist, a Major Taylor in 1896, who was just looking to be allowed to compete on American soil. And then, there was Jackie Robinson, and that was a wave. And then Carlos and John Smith and Muhammad Ali was another wave. He said Kaepernick was the fourth wave, taking the knee. And he says, so significant was what we just saw last week. This is a fifth wave. This is new, you know? And just in the midst, you know, it hit me Where's Tiger in all of this? So that was, I mean, you just listen to this guy's answer on Tiger.
It's never a universal response when it comes to sports people. I was curious if you've any insight into Tiger Woods, or if you'd spoken to Tiger Woods previously, because Milwaukee made their decision on the Wednesday night, and on Thursday morning, probably the greatest golfer in the history of the game, who just so happens to be African-Asian and, you know, plays the current president's sport, and it is the sport of white America and the country clubs. I was interested to see, would he make any demonstration on Thursday? Might he take a knee? Might he even boycott the event, which was certainly not a career-defining event for him? And we have never heard much from Woods in that department, next to nothing. And he's now in his mid-40s. You know, this is not a new kid on the scene. Maybe he's struggling to grapple with his status or how to behave. He must know himself and know his thoughts at this stage. Has Woods ever approached you for advice or thoughts? Have you ever heard what his thinking is?
I've talked to him in the past. I've talked to Tiger in the past. I haven't heard anything from him. I'm not looking to hear anything from him as far as I'm concerned. With this movement, he's irrelevant, and I think that we should just move on. I mean, there's nothing there that's going to have any impact. Nothing that he could say would be believable. Nothing that he could do would be creditable. Nothing that he could contribute would be worth very much. And in point of fact, nobody expects anything. So at this late date, who cares? No, I haven't heard anything from him. Not looking to hear anything from him, and I don't know anybody else who is either. He's irrelevant.
And my reaction was, oh.
I thought it was brilliant. I really did.
Pretty damning a Tiger, isn't it?
Yeah. Unsurprising. I think it fits in with what Harry Edwards has probably said previously. I don't know if I heard him quite go that far. And I don't know if him making statements like that has ripples in America. But there is no expectation on Tiger now. Like, he's right in that, like, he is an irrelevance in this conversation because he's made himself an irrelevance. He doesn't want to have any part of it. And golf is more than happy for him not to have any part of it. I couldn't, from watching some of his press conference last week, and listen, it's never going to come up, I don't think, really in post-round interviews, right or wrong, but there didn't seem any great desire to ask him about it in press conferences as to, you know, is he going to take the knee? Is he going to withdraw from the tournament? I think an expectation that would be made of every other player in his position. But again, are we focusing too much on Tiger? And should we be asking questions of all the players? Again, did anything happen aside from, was it Cameron Champ wearing black and white shoes?
Tony Finau was asked about it in one of his post-round interviews and said a conversation needs to happen. And at least he spoke about it. He was asked about it. I didn't see Tiger being asked about it. I would suspect interviewers rightly suspect he doesn't want to be asked about it. So therefore they don't.
So what do you do in that situation regarding coverage of Tiger? Like, how do you, because he is an irrelevance, and as Harry Edwards said, they're moving on without him. So do we all just forget about Tiger and say that is not a part of his life and that's perfectly fine? He's made that decision. So, but we still talk about his greatness because he is the greatest golfer we have ever seen. Should this be a factor in that?
Well, I mean, is the same argument applied to Michael Jordan? Is his legacy as the greatest basketball player of all time tarnished because he pointedly and deliberately didn't say a word about race relations in the United States for the entirety of his career, despite this last year or these last few months being quite vocal?
To be fair to Jordan, like, the conversation wasn't really happening as much across the 90s with any athletes. Like, he refused to endorse the candidate in North Carolina who was going up against some racist.
Jesse Helms, who's like a notorious racist.
Yeah, so he refused to endorse the Democratic candidate, and he made the quip about Republicans buying sneakers too, which, you know, he hates that has become so entwined with him, and he says that was just a quip and didn't really respect his views. But then, like, you know, it kind of does,
he
doesn't
never
it?
said anything about the Rodney King situation. I take your point, but I mean, it's not as if that America hasn't had race issues intermittently, and I absolutely take Edwards' point about there being 5 waves of it. You know, I mean, he obviously knows a hell of a lot more than I could ever know. But, you know, there was the Rodney King riots in '92, and Jordan was still like the biggest star in the world, not just of basketball.
Yeah.
Not a word. And so, like, Jordan pointedly, and you know, and I understand this, like, simply by virtue of the fact that he is a black man, does he have to speak on all these issues, you know?
Sure.
And and that in itself speaks to, is there a racist overtone to that as well? However,
yeah, and that's an interesting point, that you make. I agree with that. Like that is, it's uncomfortable kind of everyone turning to Tiger and say, well, you should say something. But I mean,
I'm
like,
a white middle class man from Ireland. What it's like.
Of course. What do I know is right? And if he turned around to everybody and said, hang on, what do you all know about it? That'd be a fair point. But like, we're not talking about some systematic issue here that's very, that difficult to decipher. We're talking about, like, you look at the Blake video, just a guy being gunned down and shot 7 times. I mean, it's
absolutely,
it's just so striking. It's just so striking that this, he's saying nothing. It is, whether he likes it or not.
But I would go back to the thing that we were talking about last week. It's not just Tiger Woods isn't staying silent in an environment that is speaking up. Tiger Woods is staying silent in a sport that buttresses silence as the way. It's this is the country club set. This is conservative, largely white America that has really very little to say about this issue other than, perhaps is to speak out against Black Lives Matter or to express real disquiet with protesting. And Tiger Woods, whether he likes it or not, is part of that. And so, again, I am not surprised he hasn't said a word.
Could we say that most superstars, not all, would be, let me put it, not as educated as most? They focus their whole lives on sport rather than education. And they don't really know any better. And they don't know that it is, it's up to them to actually take a bit of action when they have all this publicity and as many fans that they have behind them, that they actually can make a difference. And they actually don't know any better because they're not that well educated.
I think that's a good point, Peter. I also think as well is that if I try and put myself in the shoes of the sporting superstar, is that many of them must surely balk against the sense that, the package of sporting accomplishment and greatness comes with it a duty to speak out on the social issues of the day. And absolutely, I mean, I'm sure lots of them will go, you know what? No, I'm here. I worked really, really hard. I'm good at my sport. I don't see why I have to speak up on these things. But, fair is where pigs win prizes, and the world isn't built like that. And whether we like it or not, we look to our heroes. We look to those we look up to express their opinion on the broader matters that are affecting society at large. And as to the point about whether they don't know any better, sure. But you could say that about anybody, and surely it takes very little to educate yourself, just a little bit, and you don't have to go deep on issues like that, but you can say, you know what, the idea of shooting a black man 7 times in the back is
that's
just
the thing.
plain unfair. I don't need to be educated.
We're talking about such a basic here. I mean, we're not asking you to analyze the taxation system and see if there's a better way we can do things. I mean, this is such a basic, like Black Lives Matter. How more basic a tagline do you want? And Woods isn't 20. Woods like, he would remember the Rodney King riots very, very well, I suspect. Like, he's in his mid-40s. And you've got Naomi Osaka as a 22-year-old taking the lead in tennis, another very white sport. You've got like the NBA leading the way. You've got so many people leading the way. You don't even have to lead the way. Going back to Nathan's point, how will this impact on his legacy? Not hugely would be the answer. Like in 40, 50 years, when people say, what does Tiger Woods mean? They will say probably the greatest golfer that ever lived. And he was a phenomenon. And it'll be pretty low down in the footnotes. He had nothing to say about anything political. But like, at the same time, when you mention Michael Jordan, of course you think basketball. The Republicans buy sneakers thing too is not a gazillion miles away. And I think Tiger's silence, maybe up until this period, was, it was interesting, it was notable. But I think like it's moving into the territory now of being damning, and actually is a bit of a mark against him because of the environment all around him. And it's just nada, it's just zilch. You won't even, lend your voice in a small way. And again, who am I to be saying that about Woods? And I'm so conscious of that. But if you're trying to assess his legacy, then I think it's becoming a slightly bigger part of his legacy, Nathan, while still minor enough long term. Oh, we can't hear you there, Nathan.
Am I gone?
You're sort of back. You're back, but quiet.
Quiet? Am I? Oh, dear God. I'm just having a nightmare with my...
You're okay now. You're good now.
I'm okay. If I sit right here in this incredibly uncomfortable position, I'll be just fine.
Don't move.
I think 10, 15 years ago, you're right, that Tiger Woods may well have felt, I'm not educated enough, and you could say he should educate himself, but may well have felt, I'm not educated enough to become a leader around this, which is what people would expect. He can't just be another guy around this. People will want interview after interview. But I think at the stage of his life he's at, firstly, it's a very simple, I would think, a right or wrong argument, and he can come out. He has more control of the media than probably any other sports person in the world of what he does and doesn't do. So he doesn't need to go on CNN and sit down for half an hour and talk about his politics and get into and have a Harry Edwards style conversation. That's not him. That's fine. But he has total control of the media and what he does. And all he needs to do is come out with a somewhat forceful statement and say, what is happening is wrong. And I fully support what my other athletes are doing. And I would encourage them to keep doing that. And here is what I'm going to do. And I don't know what that is, whether it's donations or he's obviously doesn't seem like he's going to boycott a tournament at any stage. And then leaves it at that. And he doesn't need to do any more interviews because he has that power. He has that power to say, I'm done, I'm moving on. And the fact he hasn't, maybe it doesn't dampen, maybe it doesn't, he's not going to elevate his greatness through this the way somebody like LeBron James is. But I think you're right that this has become such a big issue, and for most people, a straightforward issue, that you do wonder if it's more and more going to dampen his greatness over the next 5-10 years, because it is moving so quickly at the moment. But I would also be somewhat disappointed in, I know the stereotype of the white country club guy, but I still think of that guy now as a 56-year-old, like your granddad, who, all right, you try and educate a little bit, but is sort of set in his ways and has grown up with certain attitudes. But the players who are on tour who are coming through at 20, 25, 30 are well educated and who are seeing what is happening. And you would have hoped to have grown up in a way that they would realize what's happening is wrong and would feel empowered to, like, not a single golfer is the thing. I know Tony Finau was asked about it. It just seems just bizarre. Like when you talk about Naomi Osaka, like pretty much somebody in every single sport, even here in Ireland, I heard Adam Ida talking about it. Even Darren Randolph, the Ireland goalkeeper, who doesn't feel comfortable, I feel, sitting in front of the media and talking. Yet still, when he was asked about it, you can tell he doesn't want to be that thought leader around this. Yeah. But his answer was, I support all of those other athletes, and whatever way I can assist, I will. Not I'm going to stand out in front, but whatever needs to be done, I will do it. And that none of them are even having that conversation. Again, we're in Ireland, the conversation in America, and you can tell from the responses we will get to this, and we got last week on social media, I think from people who listen to us in America, like they think we're mad talking like this. We don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Wow. Although I did get a very nice text message off a listener called Ethan Hart, who was, I won't read it out because it's, but anyway, I just want to acknowledge that amongst, the criticism, there's also, we do have people who appreciate the effort we go to try and unpick it in our own way.
But it's weird. Like, I mean, Sky Sports did it like briefly for like 90 seconds on Thursday. It's weird that golf is not talking about this. Like, this is one of the biggest things that's happening in US sport, like, ever. You know what's going on at the moment. It's absolutely seismic. And golf is just like bobbing along, Cameron Champ obviously made his stand, but like, it's not being talked about. It's odd. Like, it's really odd at the moment. And I don't know. Jay Monaghan, by the way, has said that all of their tournaments, so for people who are saying don't talk about this, and it's, it has nothing to do with what's going on, the PGA Tour are quietly saying they're upping their efforts. So in fairness to them, all of our tournaments that are going to be identifying racial and social injustice causes in local markets going forward. He said, over the next 10 years, we would project that we will generate at least $100 million for those causes over the next 10 years. And that's something we're going to hold ourselves accountable to. In fairness, that's very commendable. And Monaghan as well outlined a program which is going to help top players from historically black colleges and universities with coaching and access to Corn, Ferry Tour qualifying, etc., to get more non-white golfers on the tours. So that's what the PGA Tour are doing. I think, Fionn, that's pretty commendable. I mean, there is a limit to what sport can do as well, you know?
Yeah, and as the old saying goes, money talks and bullshit walks. So, you know, if you're... And
I need to start using that saying more.
It's the... there's something, though, commendable and at the same time kind of predictably frustrating about it, you know? It's just that like, oh, no, we're not going to engage with the issues. We're just going to... Look, we've raised money and, you know, and fine. I think, and I realize that, you know, we can keep flogging this, but like, it goes back to this thing is in the end, I don't think PGA audiences are that affected by this. And sure, and optics are important. And I have no doubt that many a PGA Tour pro has individual charities that they feel devoted to and would happily help fundraise for. Rory has a foundation, Tiger has a foundation, you know, and you know, if you to dig deep, like they all do fine work. But it's like, it's almost as though it's the maintenance of a buffer between themselves and the actual issue. And it's almost that they're terrified, and I am not putting words in Jay Monahan's mouth and certainly not putting thoughts in Jay Monahan's head. I have no doubt that Jay Monahan is coming out and he has to deal with a billion things. He has to deal with sponsors. He has to deal with the PGA. He has to deal with money. He has to deal with lots of things. But it's this buffer between, they don't want to get their hands dirty. That's the thing. That's the overriding impression I get. And maybe, you know, maybe that's just the way it is and that's just okay. But I don't know. I find it, yes, commendable, absolutely, to make a statement like that. I mean, we'll see in the next 10 years how much they actually do raise and whether it goes to causes earmarked for social justice, etc. But at the same time, as I said, there's something so kind of frustratingly predictable about here's £100 now, go away, you know? And maybe that's just me being unfair, but I'm looking at Peter kind of smirking.
No, I think you're right, to be honest with you. And it is, there's £100 and go away. People sometimes believe then, you know, throw money at a problem and, you know, it's fixed. There's a whole lot more you can do than that.
Let's move on then. So Eastlake starts on Friday to Monday, $15 million. I mean, geez, in the COVID era, $15 million going to somebody. Oh, tonally, this has always been, I think, a weird one. You know, like Nathan, even in the commentary, it's like $15 million, $15 million. You know, this is for $15 million, $15 million up from 10. And there has always been this thing of like, geez, I'm not sure how invested I am in really rich young golfer getting an extra $15 million. I don't know if that, like, am I nervous for him? Am I rooting for him? Where are we with the FedEx finale? I mean, I think of Bill Haas out of the water. That was kind of a cool moment. Yeah. Rory's had a couple of charges. It's interesting in that golf and presumably buoyed by the money from FedEx is trying desperately to make this a huge thing. Like, who was it? He did the interview on No Laying Up. He used to do the TV coverage and he got the sack.
Peter Costas.
Peter Costas did, you know, Peter Costas, one of the issues apparently with Peter Costas was when he was, you know, interviewing a winner on the 18th, and Peter Costas wants to say, you're going to the Masters, which is like the thing. And, you know, the word from the TV executives was, Peter, if you could just start by saying that the person has just won 2018 FedEx Cup points first, you know, that's kind of what we're trying to get here. And Costas was like, that's ridiculous. So golf is really trying to push the FedEx thing. To what extent, Nathan, has it, you know, got your juices flowing? Has it caught the imagination? Where is it in the pecking order?
I think it's fallen down the pecking order this year because it's not the season finale. So actually, it's almost a warm-up for a couple of weeks' time in the US Open and then heading towards a Masters. So this year is definitely different. And the money doesn't feel as relevant as it once was because they all have so much of it right now. So even though 15 million is still out of the ordinary, all of these guys, whoever wins it, it's just going to add on to the 15 million they already have, probably from this year. Whereas even when Bill Haas won it, which is, I think, 9 years ago now. In fact, even Jim Furyk a decade ago. Remember when Jim Furyk won it? I think in the darkness. It was a real muggy evening.
Turned his hat the other way.
Exactly, yeah. And it felt, even for Jim Furyk and all the success he'd have, that this was a life-changing amount of money, even when it was about 7.5, 8 million at that stage. And I think there was a sense that players struggled to come to terms with the money, whether it was Furyk or Haas or Brandt Snedeker, that there was maybe a bit of a dip in the months afterwards that, geez, like, I'm set up for life if you weren't already. Whereas now, maybe it's the caliber of winners. Like, you've had Rory, Tiger, Jordan Spieth. They're all, 15 million quid is added to the 50 million I already have in my bank account. So it's still not. And at this current stage, Marley, yes, understandably, everyone's going to have questions. But I think in terms of actual golf, unless it was 50 million right now.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them worry about it too much.
Jay Monahan was asked about this in the same press conference where he announced this fund raised for social justice causes. And he was asked, basically, how sensitive are you to playing for that kind of money in this kind of environment, given that, post-pandemic, and his answer, his answer was suitably waffly for a while. But then he got to the point and he says, to answer your question directly, to be the number one tour in the world, to get players to play here and to play the schedule that we play and to be able to generate the dollars we have, it's a competitive marketplace. And we feel like it's really important for us to be able to present the best possible opportunities, which in any other year you'd go, okay, but the PGA is the biggest show in town. But also given that the only other major tour, the European Tour, is, has a vastly reduced format. The purses are like a fraction of what they would ordinarily be. And even in the best of times, European Tour purses aren't nearly that you would find on the PGA Tour. The second question you'd have to consider is given that, there's all this increased testing, safety expenses, so on and so forth, is that like they've also cut a ton of jobs on the tour. The PGA has cut, I don't know, I think recently, I could be wrong, but this week alone, they cut 55 jobs. And the sponsors are ponying up for diminished perks. It's like, why is everybody taking a hit except for the players? Like, I think that's a very legitimate question. And also as well, is that, would it be so awful that instead of playing for $50 million, they played for 8? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be terrible. It'd be awful.
I know what you mean, but it just seems, and it was interesting to have Monahan have to address this because, as Nathan points out, like, the optics are kind of sketchy at the best of times. But in this year, it's just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
But yet,
I think it'll be interesting to see how they treat it on the Monday. Like, I mean,
you mean they won't have like the money in a perspex box dropped by helicopter?
A little bit. Like, to what extent will they be like money?
Come on, they'll still be money.
Yeah. It's America. Yeah. Of course they're going to be.
I think that's, but it's interesting what my read on Jay Monahan's answer is that he is reacting to unbearable pressure put on him by the PGA players. And then a strange thought came into my head. Is he like the really brilliant leaders all think like 8 moves ahead. So is he thinking whatever that PGL or whatever that the league want to create, is he thinking sure, right now that's a pie in the sky stuff, but like, I need to keep the players committed. Like, I don't need anybody loosening their devotion to the PGA. Like, I was listening to the answer. I read the answer, and then I was like, I wonder.
And to be fair, I don't really, I don't know what it was like 20 years ago, Peter. Maybe you've a better sense of things. But like, there is a danger if they don't have something. I mean, it's completely manufactured and it's based on money as opposed to tradition. So it's like, a bit, whatever. But if they didn't have it and then the majors finished in August, the season could go off a cliff. Like quite a few lads could say, well, I'm pretty much done here. I'm going to put the clubs away for 3-4 months. I mean, you've got to do something, even if it's as grotesque as just dangling cash. You've got to do something to keep the show on the road. I don't know what happened 20 years ago.
What happened 20 years ago was people put the clubs away.
Okay.
Or they went to Australia and they played over Christmas in Australia or very early January. And then came back to Europe and played. Nearly the first tournament back was your Masters tournament. So the golf season was much shorter in a way, which mightn't have been a bad thing. Because sometimes you get OD on, on the Mickey Mouse type golf courses where DJ won 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It's a member golf course, really. It's not a challenge of what it was last week. So that's where I think it. I'd be in favour of getting rid of this massive amounts of money that they're playing for, and actually let the season finish a bit earlier.
But the entire American sports calendar is built around playoffs, always.
Yeah.
In every sport. They need this grand finale and the chance that anybody can win. This more equitable solution that's here. Even though you're 8th, you can still somehow turn up on the final day and take home the gold. And that's the other thing, remember, that this is a totally different scenario this week that they've changed over the last couple of seasons, where Dustin Johnson is going to start on 10 under par. Jon Rahm will start in 8 under par. Rory McIlroy starts the week back in 3 under par. That it's not a normal tournament anymore either, Eastlake. It's like Dustin Johnson is the overwhelming favourite to go and win this because he has a massive start on everyone.
I do like the staggered scores as opposed to having to rely on the TV coverage to tell you what was what for the entire week. Like I now know Johnson's 10 under, Rahm 8. Who is there? Justin Thomas 7, Webb Simpson 6, Morikawa 5. On it goes. As you said, Rory is 3 under. If you finish if you turn up at Eastlake, by the way, stink the joint out. Don't hold a single par putt. You still make off with €400,000, which is just a beautiful, beautiful week's work for doing very little. Dustin Johnson, by the way, does not particularly do well at Eastlake. So I'm thinking we have a decent tournament on our hands here. He'll blow that 2-shot lead by Friday evening.
I think Rory is great money.
At 7 behind. Okay, well, let's say Johnson drops 2. He's, what is he, 6?
No.
5 behind.
Yeah, no, I know. I was having a look at this, okay? Consider this. Since the tour went to Connecticut for the Travelers Championship, which is at the end of June, okay? Dustin Johnson, Jon Rahm, JT and Colin Morikawa have finished at the top of the leaderboard in 7 of 8 events, including the major, in which at least one of them has played. And the only outlier is Michael Thompson. And in a handful, one of the others has finished second. Like, with the exception of, who did you say was on 6 under going into the final round?
I'll tell you now. Justin Thomas is 7.
Webb Simpson is 6.
Webb Simpson, who isn't playing, is he?
No, he is. He didn't play last week.
He didn't. But
if ever there's a player you're just always destined to forget.
But like, what you've got is that like only Michael Thompson has upended every player from this foursome, so that foursome, in a single event in which one of them has played since the end of June, which is unbelievable. That consistency, these 4 guys are just like, and only for Colin Morikawa not having played a huge amount of events, but like there is no, I mean, particularly with DJ and Jon Rahm, they're just like and poor old Bryson DeChambeau, who started the season so on fire, so electric, so he's going to dominate, he's going to change the game of golf. And I mean, he's had a good year by his standards, but not by the standards of Jon Rahm or Dustin Johnson.
So a tweet in from King of Wessex, who was watching us, and he makes a fair point, and I hope we weren't too harsh. He says, I don't think it's fair to speculate harshly on Woods' inaction on Black Lives Matter. He's probably suffered more than we know. It's up to him, which is ultimately, I think, a point we would all agree with. I mean, it's very interesting. It's you would like to know the why. You'd like to know behind the scenes, does he think about it much and he's outraged and just doesn't want to get involved, or he doesn't bother, he doesn't think about it that much, doesn't really come into his sphere. It's almost what is his thinking on it that you'd be very curious to know. But That's a fair tweet in, so I just thought I'd read that out before we go. Any final thoughts? I guess, well, setup-wise, I mean, I liked what we had last week. Eastlake tends to be pretty decent.
Before we go, can we just throw a mention to the great injustice of the week is Sofia Popov not being allowed play.
Oh, yeah. So what happened here? Because I saw the commissioner came out and he was lauded for giving a very fair summation of why they were treating her the way they were treating her. What's the specifics?
Okay, the fields were set, weren't they?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The fields are set. So it's the ANA gets off. I think it starts next week. So the exemption criteria had been set after the tournament was cancelled in April, and Popov, who doesn't get her 5-year exemption because she didn't have LPGA Tour status, so she's been denied that despite having won the major. It's the fact that they won't make an exception for her is just seen as, well, certainly Ewan Murray took like a hammer to the decision in The Guardian this week. This is as extraordinary as it is shameful. Explanations relating to the makeup of the California draw are even further undermined by the fact that a number of the top female players will not travel as they are based in Asia. So they're not even talking about a full field. They could easily have just said, look, Popov won a major. We didn't expect her to win, but because she's won, here's your invite. Welcome. Come play. But they're not.
The actual criteria was probably wrong at the start. Never mind the injustice that it holds now. But I suppose if you look at it, if you set rules, then you know what I mean. Are you going to continuously break them for everybody?
Well, yes, right now, in the middle of COVID, we are. There was a rule where once upon a time I used to have to go to work all the time. Yet now here I am sitting in my boxers broadcasting to the world.
Naked from the waist down.
Things change quickly.
She does have an ANA exemption for 2021, though. So winning the major does give her that exemption next year. It's just, it seems such a waste of momentum not to give it to her for this round.
Totally. And I've seen comparisons which are not correct comparisons of Daniel Berger, who isn't in the Masters field this year, despite the fact he's 13th in the world rankings. But Sofia Popov will be the reigning major champion, and she's not going to be there. So they have to make an exception. And the other thing as well of this 1-year exemption because she wasn't a tour member is a joke. So yes, it's brilliant that she got the near 700 grand and it's life-changing. But the thing that's actually life-changing is she should have 5 years of playing LPGA Tour golf in a relaxed manner, knowing she can plot out her year, and that's now gone. And again, like she's the biggest story, unless something ridiculous happens in ladies golf, she's going to be the biggest story in ladies golf of 2020. And instead of taking advantage of that, they're closing the doors saying, nah, we don't want you. Maybe next year when everyone's forgotten about you, we'll let you in.
Did you listen to your man, Jay Monahan, isn't it?
No,
No.
Not Jay Monahan.
His equivalent.
Yeah. I listened to it anyway, and I thought it was very good.
I thought he was very clear, but he's wrong.
Yeah, very clear.
Mike Wan is his name.
Mike Wan, yeah. But he said he'd look at it next year, but he wasn't. So he's not ruling out. She has an exemption next year as we speak, but he said he's going to look at the exemptions at the end of the year rather than changing the rules in the middle of the year.
But
I suppose if you're a commissioner, it's very difficult to say, well, then, it's like, will somebody take legal action against them by changing the goalposts?
But didn't as Nathan pointed out, haven't all the goalposts changed anyway? So what's one more goalpost?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Beating them down.
I mean, even Ian Poulter.
Peter, at least stick to your guns, for God's sake.
No.
Peter, give us a winner from Monday.
You're going to laugh at me now.
No,
okay?
I'm not.
You are.
Go on.
Because I'm actually going to go back to my old faithful, Tony Fennu.
Okay. He played well, though, last week, didn't he?
He plays well all the time. That's why
here we go. Listen to me now. Biggest tournament of cash-wise, I reckon if he's going to pull one off, they're going to be one of the big ones.
How many shots back is Tony Fionn?
I was just going to ask. So you think he is, even coming from way, way back?
Yeah.
He's going to win this.
He's about 10 shots back, Peter.
He's the outsider.
I'm going to go with Rory for a top 5, which is perhaps. I see Joaquin. Is that his name? Joaquin Neiman is 100 to 1.
Can I just say, I don't know about you guys, but I hate putting down a 5 or a 10 and getting 20 quid back or 30 quid back. If I'm going to win, I want to win big. I don't want to win. And
we're not asking you to bet here. We're just asking who's going to win.
I know. But look,
Tony Finau is 8 shots off the lead.
Yeah,
so he starts out on 2 under par, and his odds are
40 to 1.
There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic between Tony Finau and the top there.
Yeah, I like Justin Thomas. 3 shots back.
It's a nice number.
Straightforward. Tick along. Home you go.
It depends really on Justin. If Johnson gets in the mood and has a couple of birdies early doors, then that gets very tough to stop. Jon Rahm 2 shots back. I would take Justin Johnson versus Jon Rahm part 2.
Is the fact that he played it on that pitch and putt track 2 weeks ago, and then won it last week, came a shade from winning last week. So it's not easy track. It's easy track, difficult track. Justin Johnson just is playing absolutely out of his skin. Does that not augur well for Eastlake, even though he hasn't played well there before?
Yeah, it does. It does, to be fair.
I'm a terrible bettor, by the way.
What's he done? What was the stat that he's the first golfer in, I think, nearly a quarter of a century to hold a 54-hole lead in 3 straight tournaments?
See. Oh, I mean, I'm so fascinated to see what he does at Winged Foot. I really am. 2 quick things before we go. 1, Peter, if you could avoid telling Rory McIlroy's agent in future that Nathan
Jesus Christ.
I just throw you down to Swanee. No, he knows. He listens to the show.
The biggest shock was, considering all that you have said about Rory, that Sean still gives you his, you must be giving him a freebie, but Sean still gives you his business.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
Sean has nothing to do.
Sean, at least
Are you charging him for the track match?
Turn down the free balls, Sean, and keep your pride here.
That's business. That's client confidentiality, that one, Fionn.
Disgusting.
Well, it really is the place to go. You had McIlroy's manager. I think you said you had McGinley there last week as well.
Paul was there last week, yeah.
Well, anyway.
People didn't know. Some people didn't even know him. It was great.
Who wouldn't know Paul McGinley in the driving?
Privacy is extended at Spawell Academy for VIPs.
Yeah, we gave him the VIP room too.
The second point I just want to ask you. So I was watching all of Tiger Woods' round last week, and like I said, he was hitting the ball extremely well. The one thing he seems to do is this block high and right, like club getting stuck behind him. And there's that old Golf Channel footage with him and Butch in a studio, like right when he came on the scene. I think everyone's seen it on YouTube. And again, even then they were saying that's his thing that he fights. Why can't, 20 years on, why is that club getting stuck behind him and he's blocking it high and right? Why can't he fix that?
Like Joe, anything, once you have a fault in your golf swing, it's very difficult. It'll always come back and haunt you at some case, and it's hands. He always seems to work with his arms in front of his body, and he struggles sometimes to do that. I think to be honest with you, I think sometimes he just gets a little bit lazy, and he's trying to hit it with his body rather than his arms, and he gets ahead of it. Club gets behind him, ball goes straight right. But it's definitely a fear that he has.
Because it's a violent miss. You got to snap hook it if he tries and saves it with hands. Like it's a really bad miss.
It's just I later on in my career, that's what I suffered from, that destructive shot. And you just can't have them. And that's what I said to you about Jordan Spieth. That's one of the reasons. One of my main reasons is why I always struggled to see him coming back to where he was because of that destructive shot that he has.
If there's an amateur listening who has that high block, or else they hook it with the hands. I mean, I'm asking for a friend again.
Yeah, get the hacksaw out, stick them in the wheelie bin, and try football.
Is there any?
I came second in a comp on Monday with that problem.
Is there any drill, old time, on the driving range, little old timer pro tip to try and sort that out for a round?
Do you know what I find this hilarious? Do you know that? Because you used to tell people I was a terrible coach, and now you're trying to get coached live on air. Well, come on down to the spa well, and we'll sort you out.
No, I'm not letting you near me.
Okay, there you go. Thanks, Joe.
All righty. We are done. Again, Golf Weekly with thanks to our friends at Now TV, where you can watch all the football coming up and all the golf on your terms. Nathan Murphy, thank you. Fionn Davenport, thank you. Peter Lawrie, thank you. And we'll talk to you next week. Good luck.
OTB Sports Golf Weekly with Now TV. Watch Sky Sports on the Now TV Sky Sports Pass and watch BT Sport and Premier Sports on the Sports Extra Pass.